Hello, ladies and gentlemen, welcome. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of the Atlantic Bushcraft Adventures. Tonight, we're going to be talking a little bit about packs. I'm going to give this one more to Ben because he is way more experienced at this than I am. He has got a lot of good information on packs. He's got a lot of experience to back that up. So I'm going to turn this directly over to Ben and let him start right away. So Ben, if you would please.
Yeah. So we're going to get into packs, like Robert said, and I mean we've gone through a few things now. We've talked about the food we take, the shelters, the sleep systems, and all that. And if you're going to go in the woods, the thing you're going to need to get all this stuff out there is your pack. And packs are very varied. There's a type of pack out there for almost every situation and every personality. So we will never touch on everything, but we can really touch on what you want to look for, what you want to consider when you're looking at a pack, and get you thinking about how you're going to use your pack, what sizes you may want to consider, and just get you on that kind of path, I guess. And those that have packs, I mean, I don't know about everyone. Maybe, Robert, you're a bit different on this, but I always looking at different packs and thinking about how that might be better than what I have, or how that doesn't provide what I already have, so it's not something I'd be interested in. But it does something that I have a fair bit of enjoyment, I guess, in finding what works for me and what doesn't. And I found a lot that don't work for me over the years. And so I did, before we started this, I sent some pictures to Robert, and if we can pull up a couple. The very first one is the ladder system on the back of my daughter's Fox 40.
Transition. There we go. That should be it there.
So you can see a thing here. It's called Very Quick, and all the loops that sort of sit above that allow us to move the shoulder harness up and down to adjust your torso length. And if you've seen our Facebook page earlier, there's a little write-up. I think it's by REI talking about how to size a pack. And it's based on your torso length from your hips up your back, making sure that it properly fits. And that's a really important thing. And I think the next picture will show like a sternum strap is another picture I have in here. And the sternum strap is the one that goes between your two shoulder straps that holds it together and sort of keeps the stress across your body evenly. So you're not just carrying it all in your shoulders. It's not pulling your shoulders back too much. And these are the type of things I think you really want to look for. If you think back to your growing up when you had your book bag for school, you probably didn't have a lot of these options. It was pretty basic. You might be able to tighten up your shoulder straps, and that was about it on a basic backpack. But when you get into a camping backpack and you're looking at heavier weights and carrying them for longer distances, you're going to want these comfort items. You're going to want another thing, and I may have a photo of there, is your hip strap, and that's the one that'll go around your hips and kind of supports actually quite a bit of the weight on a good pack is held on your hip straps.
I don't see a picture of hip straps there.
Yeah.
You might have had them, but I don't see them there.
No, I wouldn't stress about it. But I think most of us would have seen these. But just think about this when you look at packs.
There you go. See, I can be kind of useful.
Yeah, and that's a good example. And that one there doesn't have a ton of padding on it. Some of them have a lot. Some have pockets in these hip straps and stuff. And it's really important to try these packs on and see what works for you, what's comfortable for you. So if you got a big bulky strap, that may interfere with the way you move. If you got stuff poked in there, you may find it's not comfortable. And other people love to fill these things up, and they want as much padding as possible. But
it's one of the, sorry, Ben, didn't. I was just going to say it's one of the big things I look for is a good set of hip straps. Like you said, that one is a little bit lacking in padding. I do have another one with a little better padding, but it has to have a decent hip strap. For me, that takes a ton of the weight off my shoulders and sets that pack in nice and level, so I can, trudge through the woods without being pestered all day with fatiguing in my back and shoulders.
Yeah, and when you've got all this strapped on and all your straps are properly tightened and all that, the weight moves with you. And if you don't have the right straps, the weight's going to shift and move, and it's going to throw you off balance. And if you're just walking, that's going to exhaust you. If you're actually in a trickier spot where you're walking across rougher terrain and stuff, this could cause you to fall and eventually lead to injury. The other thing is, if a pack isn't comfortable, it's going to chafe, it's going to tire you out, and it's going to make the trip a lot less enjoyable. So, and like I said, we could probably go on about comfort quite a bit. I'm not going to stick to it. If anyone has questions or something they want to ask us, we can talk about that in the future, whether it's during this podcast or later on.
Yeah, for sure. If anybody wants to throw up a question on the side there, I got the chat up. I'd be more than happy to relay it across. Or if you're listening to this at a later time on one of our audio feeds, either through Google Play or iTunes, just shoot a message to the Facebook page or to the AtlanticBushcraft.ca page if you want. The AtlanticBushcraft.ca page will link you to all our other social medias, including the Facebook and all that as well.
And the great thing about packs, even if you're not going to buy them from a particular store, if you go into stores that sell packs, you can try on different types and sizes and trying to kind of get a feel for them. If you go to an actual hiking place, they actually oftentimes have weighted bags that they will throw inside of a pack to give you a feeling of how it's going to feel when you're moving, and that's useful. But if you're going into your average, say, Canadian Tire, Walmart, you won't necessarily get that option. But they have a ton there usually that you can try on and get a feel for what you're looking for.
I don't know if you're including this later, Ben, but just a question's popping into my mind.
Go ahead.
Where's a good place to look for packs?
I've actually bought my last few on Amazon, and the only problem I have with that is you don't get to try it on. Now mine I did because my wife bought one, and she used it, and I tried it for a while, and I said, I really like your pack, and I ordered the identical one in a different color a few months later when it went on sale again.
So you cheated.
Yes, I cheated. And the previous one is actually an Amazon pack, and it's one Tigress. And as much as I love the pack, and it's something we're going to get on to talk to because it has a lot of options I really enjoy, I do find on searches when I was doing a search that if it's not 100% packed perfectly, you don't have everything strapped down, I couldn't really get it to hold the weight comfortably. And as it was, I found it harder on my shoulders and a little bit of my lower back that I don't really find with a different style pack that I now use. So even as much as you might think you know what you want, until you've tried it for a while and played with it, you may not find that you have the best pack. If you get out there and you find it's not working, you either have to learn to adjust that pack or you may have to move to something else. But shop around, try things, and if you can, get a buddy's pack and try his and figure out what you like and what you don't like, and then read the reviews online. There's most good packs will have decent reviews. If it's not a well-known name, you may not be able to get a lot of information, so you're taking a bit of a risk. But usually the offset for that is they're relatively cheap. So,
So have you ever bought a pack from someplace like MEC? I just happen to know that one's here in Halifax, and I myself was actually looking at a few of them when I was up there just towards the end of last month. But as you said, they kind of always get to the pricier end of things. So is it one of those things you get what you pay for with a pack, or should you be shopping around a little bit for them?
I think you do get what you pay for the most part. And I have bought one from MELC, and it's actually my daughter's, this Fox 40 that some of the pictures are from.
Oh, it's the green one?
Yeah, it's a green one. It's a 40-liter pack. It's designed for children and smaller people. And not picking on anyone here, but like especially if you're, say, a shorter woman, like 5'4", 5'6", this would probably be an awesome pack for you. If you're shorter than that, even better. It's quite variable, and it would probably last my daughter into her late teens. And it does come with an awful lot of nice little things, like a decently wide hip straps are on it. There's all kinds of tie-down points. There's lots of straps you can cinch down. The sternum strap has a whistle on it. So there's a lot of little things on there that are kind of nice to have, useful. And there's some stuff that it doesn't necessarily have, or I don't think it has. Like I don't think it came with a rain cover. And a lot of packs will come with a rain cover, and it's one of the accessories that you might expect. Yeah,
I'm,
there's your
yeah,
whistle.
sorry, that's the whistle. That's exactly what I was trying to put up. So I didn't know if you noticed it there or not, Ben.
And you can also see like a little loop just above the sternum strap, and you can see that the sternum strap can move up and down. So that's really good, especially for getting it right. Because if it's too high, it's not going to work for you. If it's too low, especially if you're a woman with a chest, then it would be just crushing you and not being comfortable. So a lot of women's sternum straps go up higher to avoid that very reason, right?
Mm-hmm.
So these are all things you want to consider when you're trying these packs on and playing with them and stuff. But once you get from finding one that's comfortable and works, you have to think about how you're going to use it. How big of a pack do you need? And that's the next thing we'll get to. Like if you're going for an afternoon, something probably less than 30 liters will probably be perfectly fine and more than adequate. But if you're going out for an overnighter, I personally, I find about a 40 liters as small as I'd ever want to go, and most of my packs generally sit at the 50 to 70 liter packs. It's where I tend to sit, and they go right up to, I've seen 110 liter packs, and those are more for 5-6 days.
Yeah, I think Mel's, believe it or not, the one that I have in the closet over here, it's like a 110-liter pack, and it's gigantic. Like you could literally put a person inside there if you cinched it up enough.
Oh yeah, and that's fine if it's not too heavy and and you pack it well and stuff. You can take that for almost any trip. I don't have a huge problem with the pack being, say, too big. I do have a problem with the pack that's not adequate for me, because if it's not big enough, you're leaving something that you need or want.
I completely agree with that. A pack, in my mind, can never be too big. Just put less stuff in it.
Yeah.
But you can definitely have a pack that's too small and not be able to get everything you want in it.
Yeah, and if it's going to be big, it's kind of important that it has the cinch down strap so you can tighten everything up. Because if you have a big pack that you can't tighten down, if there's not these straps on the sides that cinch down, if there's not like different ways of binding it down, then you're going to have a little bit of stuff bouncing around a big bag, and it's going to be throwing the weight around. And it's just as bad having a pack that's not properly strapped to you, if it's not strapped down and contained. So you get the right size, and then you have to load it correctly. And generally they say big, bulky, light items like your sleeping bag, jacket, big items like that tend to go in the bottom and low down in the bottom. And then heavier stuff should be kept closer to your physical body and fairly high up. Not necessarily the very top, but fairly high up. Now, is that how you normally pack yours, Robert?
Mine's kind of a combination. I was actually listening to you say that, and I was kind of interested. Like, when I pack my pack, I 100% agree that it needs to be cinched down. Actually, very short story. The waterfall that you guys see in the opening there, Mel and I went there once, and I had an old pack, and I did not have a sternum strap, and it chafed my shoulders all to heck. Like, literally, I had blisters. It was red. It just sucks. So now one of the big things I need on a pack is not only a hip strap, but a sternum strap. I won't buy one unless it has both of them. Now, when it comes to packing, I tend to put my sleeping bag on the bottom. Externally, I cinch it in. But at the bottom of my pack, I usually tend to put more of my heavier stuff, then with a layer of lighter stuff, and then the medium weighted stuff towards the top. That's just personally what I do. So what's the idea behind keeping the heavier stuff on the top, Ben?
They say it helps with stability, and if, for everyone that has their preference, right? But generally they do say your light, bulky stuff at the bottom. And if you think about it, if you have a hydration pack, another accessory that goes with a lot of these, it's almost always right to the very, what I would call the front of the pack, that goes right pressed to your back, and it sits usually from the very top and hangs down, and that keeps it close to your weight. And if you put that heavy stuff to the back of the back, like as far away from you as possible, then it's going to be pulling you back all the time. So now you have to lean forward to keep that weight directly above your hips, because all your weight you really want to be right above your shoulders, theoretically, right? To keep that right in line with your spine, over your hips, and keep it so you're as balanced as possible.
Okay, and that makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
And again, and they do your medium weight stuff does tend to usually end up at the very top of the pack. And you also as much as all this weight thing makes sense, it also needs to make sense how you load it. It needs to be that the stuff you need most frequently is accessible, and the stuff you need the least frequency should be, at the least accessible points. When you get to your campsite, the last thing you're going to really take out is your sleeping bag. You want everything set up and before you pull that out, really, generally. But food and snacks, you're going to want that earlier. I usually put that in side pouches or near the top. The brain, I think they call it, of the pack is a spot.
Oh, yeah. At the very, that kind of little...
Your hood.
Yeah.
The cover or whatever, there's different names for it. But that's oftentimes where I'll put that type of stuff. And, I mean, there's no right or wrong way, truly, to pack a pack. It has to work for you. But play around with it. Try to keep, your weight as close to you as possible. You try to keep your bulk as compact as possible and everything contained.
So Randall Graham just added in there, weight close to your back preserves your center of balance as much as possible, which is exactly what you were saying there, Ben.
Yeah. So there's that. And then, that's storing stuff more or less in your pack, but packs generally have external areas for storing too. So you can store a lot of stuff external to your pack. And like you said, you hang your sleeping bag maybe below it. A lot of people you see like tents.
Yeah, see, I got these rounder straps at the bottom.
Yeah.
And that's generally where my sleeping bag would go. It'd be jammed right on the bottom of this pack, coming out the bottom. And, that's just generally how I do it.
Yeah, and mine has a similar thing, and I often take my hammock and stick under there with a tarp wrapped around it. And if I'm trying to keep my weight down or my bulk down inside my pack, because there's only so much room. So if you can find something that you can extract externally, I often take a saw or an axe or both, depending on the type of trip I'm doing. And those oftentimes are strapped externally. And that's one of the things I found where, and I have a pack similar to yours, and I'll just flip it off here, but it's the One Tigris Bushcrafter, I think it's called. And that's one thing I found with it is there's no decent spot to strap my axe externally, and it doesn't really fit internally. So that was something that I kind of struggled with. And even with all the MOLLE webbing, and I'm sure I could make a harness to strap for it, I haven't really yet. And it has the straps below. Yeah, there's a picture of it.
Yeah, I just fired it up for you there.
Yeah, so, and it has a lot of things I liked about it. I really liked the MOLLE webbing, and I think there's some pictures of me attaching something to the MOLLE webbing. The next one's probably a water bottle case.
No, next one would be, this might have been showing your hip straps. I just had them out of order here, I believe. Let's try this one. So this looks like the water bottle pack that you have that attaches via MOLLE.
Yeah, and you can see the straps, and what they do is they weave in between the MOLLE webbing and the MOLLE webbing on the item, and it goes back in and out, and it locks in pretty solidly. There's the webbing on my pack, and I think the next one probably shows it more or less attached and just pulled to one side, so you can see how it weaves through. And that creates a very solid a join it's not going to fall off. And not everyone does the full weave. I've read that some people just slide them through and snap them on and have never had problems with falling off.
Yeah, see, I have actually, funny enough, mine on the side here. It kind of blends in, camo and all that, but I think you can see it there. Can you, Ben?
Yeah.
That's my water bottle one, and I tried just the slide. Well, actually, it's starting on snap at the bottom, but I tried just sliding it through, and I put a lot of stuff in there, like a big heavy water bottle, and I'll jam my fire kit sometimes down in there, and I think I have a half a dozen other things in this, like rubber gloves and stuff like that. And if they come on snapped, it just tends to flop as you're walking, and eventually it just works its way out and falls right off.
Yeah, and it can be quite a trick to slide in through all those loops. Like, it's not something that I find personally I want to be detaching.
No, not at
4
all.
or 5 times on a trip. I usually get it strapped on, and that's how it's going to be for the whole trip. But it does have the ability to remove it, and that water bottle one has a strap. I keep it near the bottom underneath the bottle, so I can just carry it over my shoulder if I want to go without my pack for a short walk. So I have the option, but I generally don't disconnect them. but that's the type of options you can get. I mentioned earlier that you can get a rain cover, and there's a pack right here, and those are often, you'll find them um, right in the very bottom of a pack. You'll find a zipper area.
And they usually just pull up and over, don't they?
Yeah, and they're also often fairly bright colors. Mine stays strapped underneath. It has a little tether strap, and it just sits right over the whole thing. And it works while you're walking, as long as you don't have too much stuff attached to it externally. Or if you're stopped, and I hang mine from a tree. I don't know how do you store yours when you're at site?
100%, I hang it from a tree. I try not to put my bag on the ground just because it gets dirty. You get twigs in it the next time you pick it up and you throw it on. You'll have like a twig jammed into your shoulder blades or something stupid like that. So generally, I always have a small piece of paracord, like hanging on a limb first and foremost. You know, keep it simple. But if not, I usually have a piece of, I usually always have a ton of paracord with me, and I'll literally just make a kind of a quick trucker's hitch around a tree, and that's where I'll hang it for the rest of the however long I happen to be stopped.
I tend to do a similar thing. Usually at the head of my hammock, whatever tree that is, I'll hang it there just to be consistent. I assume a lot of people do something similar. I've watched some videos where some guys keep a small like piece of Tyvek or plastic, and they put it underneath their hammock and lay their bag on top of that. And I think that's a pretty good option too. So
I completely agree. The main thing there is, once again, just keeping it off the ground, keeping all those little sticks, twigs, pine cones, pine needles, stuff like that from gathering into the pack, and then once you throw it on, it's digging into you.
Yeah. And then you got something else to briefly discuss, I guess, is all the compartments. Like most packs all packs will come with at least one big compartment, but most will come with a couple of in the front, maybe some small ones on the side. Sometimes they're called butterfly packs. They expand out. Administration pack or pouches or where you oftentimes find maps and stuff, and I keep a little notepad sometimes in it. So you got all kinds of pouches. Some people like more, some people like the one simple one, and it's how you decide to organize your gear, how you want to put things in it. A method I've seen and I kind of also like is everything has its own like pouch or bag. So your clothes would go into one. You might have one for clean clothes and dirty clothes. You'd have one for food. You might have one for fire gear. You'd have one for your cook gear. And that's a fairly important one in my mind, because if you're cooking with it, it's generally going to get dirty. Yeah. And you want to keep that away from everything else. You kind of trying to keep everything as clean as possible. You're in the woods. You're going to have a limited ability to keep everything clean and neat. So everything you do to prep and be ready for that, I think it helps.
For sure.
Because if you're out there for 3 or 4 days, unless you're real fortunate and you've had great weather and it's warm and you can probably jump into the water a few times to go for a swim, you're going to feel a little grimy. Everything you do to keep it cleaner, it makes a more pleasant experience, my opinion. But yeah, so we got that. A lot of it does come down to your personal style. You can get any color, any shape, but you know, take a look at it. Like you have a tactical style, molly webbing style. I have one. I have more of your traditional packing style, and it has to go with your style. And I mean, you got lots of this webbing, molly webbing accessories on there. One of them probably a fire kit. One's probably a first aid kit. Or am I wrong with that?
No, you're actually pretty right. For my pack specifically, as you were saying, everything kind of has its own pouch. Just what's left on mine is I got the fire kit, which rarely comes off it, which has all my materials for making fire. Up here is kind of my day/medical kit, and this would be my toiletries and any kind of pills I'm going to take with me. Then I got the water bottle on the side, and That's followed up with some rubber gloves and stuff like that. If you're ever wondering why you need rubber gloves in the woods, you haven't been in the situation where you need rubber gloves in the woods yet. And then I just have some miscellaneous packs, multi-tool, and some other room for other packs that I'll put on there for food and other things like that too. I completely agree with you. It's all about personal preference. For me, Molly gear just worked good because I can keep the one pack and add everything onto it that I wanted. But I can also see where in some situations that would just not work out. Specifically, one I can think of is if you're like actually doing a lot of trail hiking, the Molly gear tends to not cinch in, it expands out. You know what I mean? The more you attach to it, the bigger and more gigantic your pack gets. I always tend to pack light, so it's not a problem for me. But if you were going, like, say, for a 6-day hike down the road or down a trail, chances are you want to avoid that pack.
Yes, but and I'm just saying this to point out something. With the Molly pack, you can go with a 50-liter pack and add 20 liters of accessory.
Oh, very easily, yes.
Or you could start with a 70-liter pack and not be able to add anything to it because it just doesn't have that accessibility. So in the end, we both have all the same gear. One of us technically has the smaller pack, but we strapped a bunch more stuff to it. In the end, the tactical gear would probably end up weighing more because of the accessories. Each accessory adds weight, and there's a duplication of material between them.
And I 100% agree with that. My tack pack there, empty, even if you add up the same literage to your typical camping backpack or hiking backpack, easily 2, 3, maybe even 5 times the weight right out of the gate before you put anything in it.
Yeah. I mean, but the accessibility, the accessories. My particular one, I also have, and I hate to call it a fanny pack, or butt pack might be another word for it. But it is that. But it has, it was a similar type brand, I think. It has the Molly webbing, and I can strap it to the very back of the pack. But it also has the belt loops to go around my waist, and it's great for like day runs and stuff. So once you're in and you set up your site, if you're doing like a little day runs, something small that you can put your first aid kit, some snacks, a little fire kit, maybe a water bottle or two, something small. It's great that I don't have to take my whole pack to move that stuff. And that's what the Molly webbing kind of allows me to do.
Oh, for sure. And it's funny enough, you were kind of laughing at the fanny pack, but I say to everybody, don't laugh at the fanny pack. You'd be surprised what you can take into the woods in a fanny pack that'll make your life so much more comfortable for just a little day hike. Toilet paper being an important one.
Yeah, I try never to be without it. And since you mentioned it, and I'm going to always push this one, baby wipes are awesome.
Just recently started down that trail, and you are 100% right. It's one of those things, there'll always be a handful of them, at least in my pack now. Not just for the immediate need of toiletry use, but they're also good just like a quick hand wipe or a face wash or something like that if you're not around water.
That's exactly my thoughts. That they're thicker, they're fairly good for cleaning things up. They have a bit of moisture in them, and you don't necessarily, like when you're in the woods, you may not find clean, available water when you really feel the need to wash up, and that having that is a great comfort. So I always take a Ziploc bag with 5 or 6 stuck in it at least when I take a trip. And the beauty is take what you can get where you can get it. It's commercially sold now for mainly for mothers with small kids, I guess, is small pouches with 5 to 10 in it, and you can get them at the dollar store and anywhere. So it's readily available if you don't normally keep large Costco-sized things.
And another name for them is wet ones that you see. They're those are the small packs you're talking about. And for anybody that's adventurous, if you go online, look for a product called One Wipe, ONEWHIPE, or however you spell wipe, WIPE. Sorry. Anyway, it's called One Wipe, and it's one of those products that are geared towards men, so to speak. You find them on the men's websites, but it has nothing to do with gender. And generally, what they are is they're one great big wet wipe, and they claim that one wipe is enough to wash yourself head to toe, and that's why it's called One Wipe.
Perfect. No, I haven't seen those.
It just came up on my Facebook feed a couple days ago, honestly. I think I'm going to order a couple to try them out. Maybe sometime when summer rolls around and you and I get out to the woods, I'll grab a couple and we can test them.
Sounds like fun.
It sounded a lot weirder saying it out loud.
Yeah,
that's for sure.
I was at least uncomfortable there.
Neither was I, so that's good. Hopefully nobody else wasn't either.
It definitely could be entertaining for anyone we try to video that for. So I think we've covered a lot of the basics. I mean, you got your style, you got your comfort. You want to make sure, and it's always fun. I don't know. I think probably everyone ends up doing this. I assume, otherwise I'm weird. But when you go to pack, you gather up all the stuff you think you're going to need, and you lay it down on the floor, on the bed, on a table, wherever. And it's pretty intimidating thinking, how am I going to take all this stuff? So when you get it and you start putting into a pack, sometimes it's kind of surprising what you can take, but it's also kind of surprising how much room some stuff does tend to take up. And you really get to thinking of how you can redo your weight. And this is a thing that I've heard mentioned a couple times. Some people will intentionally always go down a size smaller than they think they need to, because they say we all take gear we don't need and we never use, but we always think we might need it, so we'll take it. So I do know some people who intentionally will say, I will take a 40-liter pack even though I have a 60 available, because I don't feel I really need to be taking all the stuff I'm doing, and I want to push myself a little further. And it's a good practice. Just make sure you haven't left anything that's a safety issue. Make sure you have like the bare necessities at least.
Map, compass, GPS, they are not negotiable items. If you're going into the woods, ladies and gentlemen, make sure you have a way of getting out and that somebody knows where you're at. And I think you can attest to that too, Ben, can't you?
Oh, yeah. I also usually push for people to try and take a little bit of flagging tape with them, and usually a marker. And what I say is, if you're going to go off the beaten trail, if you're going to leave where you were planning on going, if you know you're going to coordinates X, Y, Z or whatever, and you've told people you're going to be there, you don't need to mark that. People expect you to be there. But if you're going to go away, it never hurts to put your name and that on a piece of flagging tape, and just flag your trail when you go away from it. And then if somebody ever has to come looking for you and we find your name on a tag, we say, that was Joe, and it looks like he went that way, and it gives a really good start in case something does happen. You fall down, you twist your ankle, and you can't get out, and you've been there for a day now, and you're really wishing you'd left that trail. So it's a quick and easy thing. It doesn't weigh a lot.
No, actually, that's a really good idea. I never thought about that myself, and I think from now on I will be putting some flagging tape in my bag.
Yeah. And, of course, your first aid kit. And if you're going, you'll probably have your shelter, your sleeping bag. I mean, these are things people don't, I think, normally forget if they're planning on spending a night.
Sure.
It happens to some people.
I'm not going to touch that one. That one will be for the stories segment of Atlantic Bushcraft Adventures. We'll save that story. Just remind me about it when it comes up.
There was a video I watched a few years ago. It was a guy doing a camping trip, and he did forget to take a sleeping bag, and they ended up walking out, going to a Walmart and picking up a kid's sleeping bag so he could make it through the night and coming back.
Mine was never that bad. I forgot the tent, to be perfectly honest. No tent, no tarp, had a sleeping bag. That's it.
My wife's got an excellent story where they forgot the poles to the tent.
Okay, that'll have to come up during our story time as well.
But I think it was an argument over whose responsibility it was to take. Anyways, I wasn't there. It was before she met me. So, do you have any other thoughts? Or
not really. I think the big ones that you landed on that stuck out to me is it's all about personal preference. Find what works for you. Don't limit yourself to one style of pack because you think it's the end all to be all. There's lots of things out there. There's lots of things for you to try. And as Ben said, try other people's packs. Ask them first, because sometimes people get a little sticky about that. They're kind of personal about it, but just straight up ask them, hey, can I try your pack? What's your thoughts on that pack? And always be looking. As you know, bushcrafting is an addiction. I'm sure you agree to that, Ben. We've said it multiple times on different shows. So don't be surprised if you end up with a couple different packs, because you might have 5 packs, but they all work in their own individual situations.
Yeah, and that touches on a quick thing is depending on the type of trip you have is totally going to change the type of pack you may want to consider. And I mentioned this to you, I think, at one point, that I have like a duffel bag. It's a waterproof dry bag that's meant for being waterproof. And it's great if you're canoeing or kayaking and strapping it to your canoe and putting it on your back for a portage. But you do not want to do a 20 kilometer hike in one day with that pack on your back. You're not going to do it. You're gonna regret it. You're going to be sore. You're going to be tired, and it's just not going to be comfortable. If you're going to do a 1 kilometer portage, dragging a kayak or canoe behind you, you're going to get away with it, and it's going to be enjoyable. And the nice thing is, if you do roll, or and I'm sure if that never happens to anyone, but if you do get wet, your stuff will be dry.
The one thing that I've rolled my fair share of canoes. The one pack that I see, and I've seen it out on the trails when I'm out walking, and I'm thinking of one specific instance when I was out Taylor Head Park. If anybody's wondering where it's at, it's out towards Sheet Harbor, just a little, I think it's south of Sheet Harbor. You'll actually end up in a provincial park there called Taylor Head. It's got 14 or 16 kilometers of natural trails. Excellent place if you've never been there. But anyway, when I worked with Natural Resources, I was out hiking this trail to cut down deadfalls and stuff, and I seen this group of young girls, and I mean they might have been 18 to 25. I don't know. I can't tell age with young women anymore, because when I say, oh yeah, they're 18, they turn out to be 30, and when I think they're 30, they're 14. So anyway, I'm going to say somewhere between 18 and 25. And they had what I call gym bags on, walking the 14-kilometer trail, which is literally, it looks like a sack with shoelaces coming off it. And do you want to talk about the worst thing I've ever seen for walking around in the woods? And this is my personal preference. To anybody that has those and they like them, by all means, good on you. But for me, if I see it, I'm always going to chuckle to myself, because you can't put any serious weight in those without cutting into you. And their quality is generally just not there. But anyway, that's my rant. I hate those bags, seeing them in the woods. The only place those should be is going to and from the gym, or maybe a walking trail in a place like Westville Park, where it's less than a kilometer and you're just kind of jaunting around. You want to carry a water bottle. That is not a pack. That's a bag. That's my rant.
Yeah, I mean, and the funny thing is, I guess we all have items that can, if you're, some of them might think it's fashionable and it looks good, but I mean, to me, comfort and functionality will always beat fashion. I don't care what the brand name is on it. I don't care if it has molly webbing or not. In the end, if I have to walk 20 kilometers, which is about as much as I really want to do in a single day. I mean, you can do a bit more, but it's a push.
That's
honestly.
A hard day if you're doing 20 clicks.
If you're going to do 20 kilometers and you end up sore because you chose the wrong pack, it's not a good scene. And if you've gone 20 kilometers in, you still have 20 kilometers to come out.
Back out, yep.
and I mean, I've done the Liberty Lake Loop. I've done a few other ones where it's you're ballpark 60 kilometers. You got your first day finished. You still got another 20 to go, and then something like 16 I think I did on the third day. And it's, you know, make sure it's properly adjusted. It's properly loaded. And it properly fits. If it doesn't do these things, you're going to have comfort issues. And if you're struggling with your pack, it takes away from the experience. The experience needs to be as clean and as pure as possible, and having the right gear. It doesn't have to be the expensive gear, but gear that works and fits and does what it needs to do will make all the difference in your trip.
And I like what you said there. It doesn't have to be expensive. It just has to do what you need it to do. That's a key phrase to me for everything. That's why I started my other YouTube channel there. Things don't have to be expensive to be functional and to be good. I don't know why some people have this idea in their head that they have to pay top dollar for brand names. And if you can, and that's your thing, good on you. I'm not saying don't buy expensive stuff. I'm saying you don't need to buy expensive stuff. Everybody starts somewhere. You don't have to go out and buy a $700 hammock setup. You can get away with a $34 hammock setup. I did a review on one. I still use that hammock. It's better than my $200 hammock, hands down. So it's going to take a little bit of shuffling around. Don't think you got to go out and buy the Taj Mahal when, you know, a nice trailer would do just as good.
My first hammock attempt was literally a blue tarp from Canadian Tire, folded up pleat style, and a rope wrapped around the end of it. I went in the backyard and I hung it up, and because I folded it in half first, because that's what the instruction, you could actually take one half and throw over you and get into it like a cocoon. And I wanted to see, just could I lay in one and would I be comfortable with it? And yes, I could. But what I did find after I untied it is it wasn't going to survive multiple trips.
I was about to say the breathability on that seems like it might be a little low.
A little shady. But it was just to see what might work. How does it feel? What can I do? And somebody said it could be done. I wanted to try. And I mean, at that time, that really impressed me because, you know, I was a fairly big man laying in a tarp that was not properly tied up or anything, but just to see what do you need, what would work. And it was an attempt. And I don't know if I spent the night in. I spent a couple hours in it for sure, playing around, seeing what it would work. I think the wife came out and she sat in it and we played to see what would work and how it felt and how it swayed. And then later on we bought $23 ones, I think, at Costco or Walmart that were just like your typical gathered in, no screen. And I used those for a while. And in the winter, that was fine because I didn't have flies. But,
Randall made a good point there. It just popped up. Surplus is a fantastic resource for budget and long-lasting gear. 100% right. There's two places I can think of that I always stop anytime I'm heading towards Halifax. Is the Army Navy Surplus on Agricola and the Army Navy Surplus, is it Enfield out by just down from the airport a little bit there?
Elmsdale, yes.
Elmsdale, sorry.
102 Surplus.
That's what it is.
Yeah, they're pretty good. Me and the owner have had a discussion online before about his prices, and some things I do find are a little high, but he's also got some awesome sales on there at times too. So it's, you know, you win some, you lose some.
And you're going to find that with a lot of Army Navy surpluses. Some stuff is just not worth it, but if you go in, kind of know your stuff, I guess is the better thing. The more you go in, the more you'll learn what an acceptable price is for what you're looking for, I think.
And it's important to look through the gear. Like with surplus gear, I mean, they don't necessarily inspect everything, and not everything's going to be perfect. You may find holes, you may find rips, you may find things you need to repair. Take your time, go through it, make sure you're getting what you expect. But yes, military gear is generally high-end gear. They don't want to buy gear every few weeks for their guys, and if they do, use it rough. So if gear makes it to the surplus and it's still in pretty good shape, it's probably going to last you a good long time. And some of the stuff, like their sleeping bag systems, are full of down. It's generally cheaper than you can find elsewhere, albeit used and sometimes having lost a little bit of its effectiveness.
Oh, for sure. I've gotten some great stuff out of the Army Navy surplus. Actually, funny enough, that's my camping cup that I brought on for our cooking show. That's where I ended up getting it, was Army Navy surplus or Amazon. I can't remember. I have two of them. One I got from Amazon, one I got from Army Navy surplus. But anyway, it's one of those things you got to find the diamond in the rough.
Yeah, and they sell, like, I know the 102 surplus sells new packs that are military style, and some of them have the molly webbing, and some have some interesting pouches.
That's where this came from.
Yeah.
Actually, this one might have been a Greco Street, but it was still an Army Navy surplus.
Yeah. And then there's the accessories, like with things like molly webbing. Having the molly webbing is a military thing. A lot of their little accessories, their ammo pouches and stuff, all have a lot of that has that type of stuff. So you can get neat little pouches and use them for not what they're intended necessarily, but for useful other things. And I think you can get some decent little first aid kits or pouches to make into first aid kits that'll attach on through them.
I'm not going to plug any specific place, but I am, like, as a habit. But one good place for people to look online is gearbest.com. I'm not affiliated with them. We're not affiliated with them. It just happens to be a place that I purchased some stuff through. Word of warning, takes very long time to ship. And they have been known to lose orders, so never pay too much for anything on there. But I mean, some of the molly bags that you've seen on my pack, I bought them for like $4 and $5 a piece. When you do get them, great quality. That hammock that I was talking about, that's where I got that. $30, amazing hammock. But it took like 5 weeks to get. So if you're in a hurry, not great. If you're on a budget and you have some time, not a bad place to look as well.
Yeah, I mean, and with any online sales, look around, try a few places, but do try to find something. That I've learned this lesson the hard way, is that you have some knowledge of whether they actually deliver or not. There's a few spots out there, like ask around, ask your friends, family, if they've ever ordered from these companies. And if you're going to order from a company you're not familiar with, start with maybe a small order just to see how it works out.
And very good point. I'm usually the guinea pig for everybody else. They'll say, "Oh, have you ever bought from here?" I'm like, "Nope, but I will," and I'll end up buying a $5 to $10 item just to see if I get it.
Yeah, so it's something to think about. But yeah, so yeah, try to find something that's comfortable, has the options, accessories you want, has the compartment style that you want. Try to find things that are generally light and weight. It's something we didn't really talk about, but that's a big thing with packs. We did discuss weight a little bit. You can get some very lightweight ones. I know there's a company, I think Ohm might be the name of it. They make packs that are sub a pound.
Yeah, I've seen that. Those are high-end packs too, though. They're a little higher price point, but they are a wicked pack.
But and very little in the way of accessory. It's generally a big pouch with just the straps. They do cinch down decently from the reviews I've seen, but they're usually made of like sil nylon or I think it's Cuban fiber, and they weigh next to nothing. These style packs, they're less than a pound, and these are often used by ultralight hikers that have a goal of less than 15 pounds for their total loadout.
Yeah, I wish I could get down to that goal.
Yeah, and it's interesting what they do to get to that point. Like these guys will cut extra inches off the straps. They will.
I've never been that desperate for weight reduction.
I've heard them removing tags from clothing because that weighs a gram, and
crap.
They say like every gram adds up.
Oh, I suppose. I mean, it's the idea same as like stock car racing. Every little bit you can shave off.
Yeah. Do you need a lid for that pot, or could you just use a piece of tin foil because it has a similar effect and weighs significantly less? I mean, they will weigh down everything. And if you want to really get your pack dialed in, this is the type of thing to think about. Do you want to use the stuff sack because that weighs something? Is there a lighter version? You get into that stuff, you can really curb your weight, but I don't know what the return really is. Personally, it's not been worth it for me.
Nor would it be for me, but I mean, I could also see that being kind of a niche of its own. People that just want to see, like, what can they get their loadout down to very little, or weight-wise. And, I mean, I could see it being a thing. I don't think I'd partake, personally. I try to, when I try to save weight, I try to save weight on major items. Do I really need 2 cook kits, or can I get away with 1 cook kit? It's kind of what I'm looking at.
Yeah, and the funny joke I heard one time someone said is like, if I got to lose a few pounds, it'd be easier to lose it off myself than it would be my pack. And that's a thought too. Like, but you can only lose so much from anywhere. And is it carrying 1 pound less for 20 kilometers more important than being comfortable when you get to the site? Because you could take a lightweight folding chair, for example, and have a good place to sit, or you could say, I'm going to save the pound and not take that chair. And if you save the pound, don't take that chair, yes, it's going to be more comfortable walk in, but now you have nowhere to sit when you get to the site necessarily, or you're sitting on a stump that could be damp, or you have to sit in your hammock or on the ground on a pad. Is that weight worth it? Think about it. If you think that carrying that extra pound into the woods would be worth it, it probably is.
I guess Randall just threw something up. Hikers sacrifice comfort for distance. It's fun too. It's all about the trade-offs, and that's completely correct. To add on to that, I was just about to say, I guess it's more, do you enjoy the trip or do you enjoy the destination? I'm more of a destination goer. My whole idea is to get into the woods, find a spot, and have fun at the spot. I could see the people that are trying to cut weight, they're all about how far can they travel and what can they see in that distance. And maybe then the weight really does become an issue.
Yeah, and they have a really good argument. Sorry about the stutter there. But if you're going to really want to see as much as you can, the lighter weight you go, the further and the faster you can travel. If you really enjoy the destination, then you're tended to travel probably a little less distance with a heavier weight. So you get there, set up a really nice camp, have a really good supper, really enjoy your evening, maybe spend 2 days at one site. I mean, and I like that. I do like to get place and really learn and enjoy it rather than be constantly on the move. But that changes from trip to trip for me. Sometimes it is about the destination. Sometimes it is about the trip. And that affects how I load up my pack and what pack I take and what gear I take.
If I so can, anybody that happens to be out there listening, be it live tonight or through any of our medias, if you are one of those people that tend to shave weight off because you're more about the traveling, drop us an email at podcast@atlanticbushcraft.ca and just give us a shout. I'd love to talk to you. Might actually be fun to put you on a show and we can just actually bat that idea around as more of one of those light traveling people, or the travel-oriented people versus the destination-oriented people. Like, I think it'd be a fascinating conversation. What's your thoughts, Ben?
Yeah, I would really enjoy it, and I'd even have questions right down to what do they wear, because I wear a fairly heavy hiking boot, and like I have a couple of ultralight hiking books, and they talk about lightweight sneakers, because it makes travel easier. But I really worry personally about the trade-off. I'd like to hear their side of it, because for me, I like the sturdy ankle support. I like to know that when I'm going across heavier and rougher terrain, I have that more secure footing. But a lighter weight does have some advantages. I'd love to hear their side of it.
Yeah, so there's an open invite to anybody that'd be willing to give us a shout and come on the show for some time.
Yeah. Okay, so I think we've talked for close to an hour, which was more than I thought we were going to get out of this, honestly. We've covered a lot of topic. I'd love to hear some opinions and stuff. I really don't have a lot to add. I mean, I can always talk more. But I think this is a good place to wrap it up, and we'll say goodbye.
Yeah, I think it's great too. Like I said, I didn't think we were going to get this much out of a pack show. The only thing I'd like to say is thanks to everybody that joined in. We had a pretty good crew tonight. Thanks to Randall, Melissa, Marcus, Wendy, Karen, my mother, Alicia, my sister, and Christiane, which would be my little sister-in-law as well. So I had some family pop in there. We had a few other ones pop in and out, but I can't see their names anymore. Thanks to everybody that came in. Anybody that's listening, once again, you can find everything that we do here. I should say you can find all of our episodes from our website, atlanticbushcraft.ca, which is at the bottom down there, scrolling around. That'll bring you to the podcast where you can listen to them directly, or if you prefer the iTunes or the Google Play, YouTube, stuff like that. That's all linked there from the website, as well as coming back to our Facebook page if you happen to be one of the people that found this on one of those other mediums. But yeah, that's it for me. Thanks for tuning in. It's always been a pleasure. Hopefully we'll see you again. Ben?
That's that. Have a great night, people.
All right, guys. Have a good night.